I'm like, this is different. I can't put my finger on it yet, but there's something so different about this thing. As somebody who's been extremely blessed to drive practically everything, not many cars give me FOMO. And the one out of everything, maybe in the past 5 years, was the Ford Mustang GTD. I saw the leak, it was sent to my phone, and they're like, is this real? And then I relayed to somebody else and said, is this real? And they said, yes. And so the GTD was on. And so when I knew it was being built, the first thing my brain was, I don't care what it ends up looking like. I don't care how much power it makes. I don't care any of those things. I have to drive it. Just for the sake. It looks incredible, right? And at first, we're all sitting around going, is this just a fantasy concept car that's never going to get built? Because it happens all the time. And with the Mustang GT3 program and Multimatic, that's when I started to have faith this car was going to happen, because they were already racing the GT3s around the same time in the timeline, and they're having a lot of success. But in order to homologate the GT3, they had to build the street car. So boom, there's the GTD. But the GTD, active aero, 200 mile an hour car, uses the Predator engine from the previous GT500, but it's beefed up, more cooling, and the DCT that also came out of the last GT500. The last GT500, for context, was bananas. That car was so fast. I think it gets overlooked in a lot of ways by cars like the C7 ZR1, now the C8 ZR1, which we can talk about in a second. But the GTD, to me, was like the pinnacle of Ford performance. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, but the Ford GT, that's even farther out of reach for people. The GTD makes a huge buzz. Everyone's talking about it. But then the price tag comes out, and it's obnoxious. And we all know it's obnoxious. And I said, why? Why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be near $500,000 for a Mustang? And I think that's what the common theme was. Oh, but it's still a Mustang, but it's still a Mustang. Well, then you see how they're built, and I was able to see how some of them were built. I wasn't allowed to film at the time, but I got to tour the factory of where they were building some of them. And I started to make a little bit more sense of it, because they have to cut so much of it and add carbon and do the tub, and it's a transaxle now, and they do a lot to make this thing different from the normal one. However, the interior is basically the same. So I think that's where a lot of people get a little skewed. But the GTD press drive happens, and I don't get to go. And I'm super bummed about it. Like, I never get bummed. I usually never get FOMO. But I felt like I was always a decent representation of the Mustang brand. I've had Mustangs forever. I love them. They're great. And I didn't get to go. And so I had a few friends there, and I texted them and I said, dude, I don't ever get jealous, but I'm so jealous. And then one of my friends replies back and he goes, yeah, man, I don't know why you're not here. This is crazy. I'm like, stop rubbing it in. First world problem. I don't get to drive a GTD. But fast forward, about a month or so goes by, and I go do some filming with Street Speed 717 up in Pennsylvania. He's like, hey man, I have this 1800 horsepower GTR. It's crazy. It does 60 to 130 in 2-some seconds. And it blew my mind. And then the same day, drove the C8 ZR1. And that was another car on the list that I hadn't gotten to drive yet. And so, him being nice, I drove both those cars the same day. And the ZR1's crazy fast. It's insane. It's very raw. It's one of those things you get out of, you're like, this is a special car. It's special, but it's not for everybody. You know, long story short, I come home, and then finally, I'm just going to post about it. Screw it. I'm going to post about it. I'm feeling FOMO. I want to drive the GTD. I've driven every Mustang that's ever existed. I need to drive the GTD. It almost feels narcissistic, right? It just felt kind of gross. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot my shot. Let's see what happens. I put up, I go, I really just got to drive the GTD. And I had a picture of it going around the Nürburgring. That's it. Posted it. Long story short. Fast forward about a week later, I get a text from a friend going, oh, Vin will let you drive his. I was like, I've heard of Vin, but I never met Vin. He's like, oh, everyone vouches for him. They're like, he's like the nicest guy. He shares his car with everybody. It'll be super chill. You guys will be 2 peas in a pod. I go, okay, so what's the plan? And so I end up hitting up Vin. I DM'd him on Instagram. I said, hey, word on the street is you're the guy. And he goes, basically, I am the guy. Let's set a day. And I go, okay. So day comes. I wake up early, get in the car, drive the 3.5 hours to Charlotte. I get out of the car, and there it is, right? It's in the garage, And Vin's garage is insane. It's got the GTD, then a 2020 GT500, I believe a Superformance GT40, which are really fun to drive. And then also just so many cool pieces of like racing memorabilia around his garage. Okay, he likes cars. This isn't just one of those things where it's just like, oh, I got a GTD allocation. He likes cars. Great. Awesome. And I clicked with him immediately. Super easy to talk to. Like, this day's gonna go great. I go outside and he lives like out on a farm. And I'm filming the car in the right lighting. I have to kind of put it under this tree because it's white and it's bright outside. And I just start hearing like random noises. I look over, there's a donkey right there just watching me film the car the whole time. And it was just funny. I'm just like trying to avoid the donkey in the shot the whole time, but then I just embrace it. So he's hitting half the B-roll shots just hanging out. Because I just thought it was a funny little thing. It's like, ha, get it? Because it's a not Mustang. Ha, great joke. Finally, it's time to get in. And the first impression is, it's a Mustang, right? You get in, I set my camera up the same way I would in a Mustang. I set my GoPros the same way up in a Mustang. But the number one thing that really gives you kind of a striking presence is when you look behind you and you have the exposed suspension, you know, the push rod suspension that's right behind you. And even as you're subtly leaving the driveway, you just see the little things doing this. Like, oh, this is serious. Like the little tuning they did for everything. Like, oh, this thing is not a Mustang. Like, it's starting to not feel like one. The more and more I'm crawling along, and I'm talking 20, 30 mile an hour, nothing. I'm like, this is different. I can't put my finger on it yet, but there's something so different about this thing. So we go out on the street, we're driving around, and finally there's some space, and I finally get to open it up. Now, for context, before I say what happened, if you get in, let's say, a 2013 Mustang, still solid axle, kind of primitive, right? The Coyote 5.0 is great, but primitive, you're probably going to spin if you have big power. Then you get to the S550, you're still going to spin. But then you get to maybe Gen 3, and then it gets a little bit better. But then there's GT350, right? That's when magic starts to happen. Then GT500, magic really starts to happen, where they've just figured it out. It can hook up really good, and it doesn't really spin too much. The way the GTD accelerates is unlike any other Mustang I've ever been in because of how calm it is. Because there's not a lot of drama. You know, you have these big, meaty boys in the back, and at any speed, it just dead hooks. And that really impressed me. We did like a 5 mile an hour roll. We did a 10 mile an hour roll. We did a 20 mile an hour roll. We did a 40. Dead hooked every single time, even with cold tires. No burnout, no nothing. And I contribute a lot of that to the transaxle, right? Which, like older Corvettes, like the C6, C7, they had a transaxle setup, right? And that put a lot of weight on the rear tires. Being in the Mustang interior, but feeling that rear end squat like this and just go as smooth as possible was really bizarre for me. And I look over at Vin and he's laughing and I'm just like, wow, they really did build something special. But the only problem is I just couldn't use it. I think first world problem once again. It's one of those things where it's one of the only cars I've ever reviewed where I desperately, I wish I was on a track rather than on the street. Because you could use 40%. You know, you really couldn't squeeze it out on a back road because it was so fast. I mean, it's a really fast car. Is it as violent as the ZR1? No. The ZR1 is like this super crazy violent Corvette. But then when you get in the GTD, it's just composure. Like, that's the best way I can describe it, is that you get on it and you know it's going to do the thing and it's going to do it incredibly efficiently. And I would say 9 times out of 10, more people would feel more confident in the GTD than say something like the ZR1. You could have anybody drive the GTD. It's so easy to drive. Like, I would argue it's easier to drive than the last GT500 and easier to drive than GT350. But I think my biggest takeaway was it's like you had a wet rag, right? And all the water's in there from washing your car. And you squeeze it, and there's only a few drips that come. It's like, oh, but there's so much left. Like, I couldn't get there. So I was just joking with Vin. You know, we make it back to his ranch. We're laughing. It was an amazing time. He was so accommodating and hospitable. It just, the braking power too. I know I'm kind of jumping back, but the braking power is so impressive. It's GT GT3, GT2 levels of braking. And so that almost made it bittersweet, right? It's like, okay, I can get on it really fast. It does the thing. And it brakes so fast because it needs to. It's heavy. But we get back and Vin was like, yeah, that was like such a good time. I'm going to go to the track soon. I'm like, I want to go to the track soon. Because it's one of those cars that with how wide the wheelbase is and with the different tires, like how big they are and the turning, the ratio is so good. I know a lot of people don't like the electric steering in the S650, but in the GTD, it's not really that noticeable to me anyway. I feel like I could get on a track and 2 laps, 3 laps, and I could be almost at the limit. Like that's how confident it is. The ZR1, I'd be like, I'm gonna take maybe one more lap, to really figure this out, because you have to manhandle it. So at the end of the day, being so blessed to drive the ZR1 and being so blessed to drive the GTD, I'm now in a privileged position to say, I don't think you should compare them. Because sure, the Corvette is the better bang for your buck and all that, without question. But when it comes to road presence and feeling special and the way that thing makes people turn their head and all that, to the untrained eye, the ZR1 is a Corvette. The GTD has this mean presence when it's going down the road. I mean, like the big hips, the active aerodynamics with the DRS that makes it go to 200, and you're driving it and it's just like eating the road. It's got this like really low, angry presence, and I can't describe it, but when you're behind it, and then if it's behind you in the rear view mirror, like, that's a badass car. Like, it just tickles the wrinkle just the right way, And some of the color specs are really cool people have, but, his was just plain Stormtrooper style white. It was that Oxford white. It looked simple, and the contrast of the wheels and all that. It's just a fantastic looking car. I mean, one of the best road presence America has ever given. I would take the GTD over a Ford GT. Like, not an 05 one, but 2020, yeah, 100%. Because everywhere we went, people were like, that is the coolest thing ever. And the ZR1, not a lot of people kind of looked at it. They were just like, oh, cool, Corvette, neat. And the GTD, they're like if you're not in the know, you're like, what is that thing? And they're just going to say, oh, that's the craziest Mustang ever. And it is the craziest Mustang ever. It's funny, the older you get with dream cars, it's almost harder to have a dream car for me now, because it's like, that's $400,000. Because it's reality sets in. And I know that sounds like you want that childhood, naive, oh yeah, Koenigsegg's my dream car. But the GTD in Grabber Blue, right? Man, I would love that, right? And I would drive the wheels off of it because it's got a GT500 engine in it that's a little bit better. And you can get parts for it, right? You can get parts for it. You can get brake pads for it. You can get all this stuff. And with some of these other supercars and hypercars nowadays, it's hard to get parts for them, right? And that's kind of my mindset since I drive so many modified cars, and things go boom sometimes and things break. But with the GTD, that car, I think that's one of those that's just gonna run forever. If you take care of it, you could just drive it and drive it and drive it. So it's definitely one of the more practical dream cars out there because it's got a simple Mustang interior. That might sound like a downside, but those materials, they're gonna hold up. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where the S650, sadly, I believe, is the worst selling Mustang of all time. And a big part of it is because they upgraded the interior so much compared to the S550. Because the big screens and all, a lot of people don't like the big screens and all that kind of stuff, which I understand. But the 650, it's in a very weird spot. But then they build the best Mustang ever, right? At the same time. And there's so many ways to buy a Mustang now that it's a little overwhelming, right? You got the RTRs, and then you have the Shelbys in Vegas, and then you have the GTD, and then you have the older GT500, and then the GT. It's just very confusing for a lot of people. And from EcoBoost all the way to GTD, right? It's crazy to think they're all the same car. There's so many ways to do it now. If there's ever a dream American car as of right now, that's probably the one. It's probably the one.
This month of VINwiki content is brought to you by Premier Financial Services, and they are the perfect partner in your journey to own your dream car because their Simple Lease is the most powerful tool in the world of exotic car financing. You'll get all the benefits of a leasing structure like lower payments and better tax treatment, along with everything we love about a normal exotic car loan where you can trade in and out at any time, always know where you stand thanks to their amortization table, and accumulate equity for whenever you're finished and ready for the next car. And Premier is great because they're wholly owned and backed by First Financial Bank, which means they have more buying power than any other exotic car bank or collector car bank in the United States, and their customer service is unmatched. Also, rates are lower than they have been in a very, very long time, so it's never been a better time to reach out to Premier, talk to their representatives, learn what you can pre-qualify for, and let them help you own the car of your dreams with Premier Financial Services.